Lawwin Media Network.
Bringing to you the most relevant content across all platforms.
Business, legal, politics, health, lifestyle, and entertainment.
Your source for all the news and updates in the greater Houston community from Texas and all over the world.
Get informed and empowered with Lawwin Media Network.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Pink Table Talk. I'm your host, Dr. Carly D., a doctorally prepared nurse, professional development specialist, educator, mentor, victims advocate, and thriver. Tonight, we have a special episode for you all with one of our favorite guest speakers. We have the wonderful Ebony Davis Martin, who is the founder of Soul Flow Institute and Global University. She is also a wife and mother of 3 and a self-published author. Tonight, we're going to be talking about her second book titled The Permeate Model Part 1, Permeate Your Way to Emotional Freedom, Managing Life as an Autism Mom or Caregiver with a Narcissistic Co-Parent or Critically Overbearing Family Member. So I welcome Ebony Davis Martin.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely, Ebony. It's always a pleasure having you on the show. I absolutely love the work you do, and I think you're just a super amazing person.
Thank you.
So let's talk about this title. This title of this book, what a mouthful.
Yes. What a mouthful, what a lifeful, right?
Yes. Oh my. So tell us about it. What is the inspiration behind this book?
The inspiration behind this book is, pretty much sharing my story and sharing a method that I came up with to manage this stress and this overwhelm. I mean, I am in no way a medical professional or a mental health professional. I'm not here to diagnose anyone. I cannot diagnose one. I am not diagnosing anyone. But we all have someone that is in our lives that have those narcissistic characteristics, and people are critical of us as caregivers and moms, especially to family members on the spectrum. And we have to have a way to deal with that, to manage that. That is very taxing and overwhelming. So that's what this book is about. It's specific steps to deal with this.
Yes, so true. Before we get into the novel, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself as a mother and what brought you to this line of work?
Yes, absolutely. So my youngest son is 24 years old. Had a birthday not too long ago, so he's 24 now, and it's like, oh wow, where did the time go? I just blinked, right?
Yeah.
And he is diagnosed on the spectrum. He was diagnosed at the age of 5, so that was almost 20 years ago, and it wasn't as commonly understood as it is more now. And so there was a lot going on, and it was hard as a single mother. I was married for a good portion of the time, but still living my life as a single mom. And I was primarily doing a lot of the work. And, that's been my life. And I had to find ways to overcome that and to still be able to take care of my son and my other children and pursue my goals. And that's what I've been doing. And that's a little bit about me.
Yes, that's truly amazing. You know, I don't think people understand how much work it is. You know, being a single mother, and then also then having a child who may have some extra challenges. It truly takes an extraordinary amount of strength to be able to do that. And I met you through an autism mothers support group, and it was something I really truly needed. You know, it was a couple years ago, and I was at a breaking point. You know, I was dealing with a lot of the behaviors that they often exhibit, and I just felt like I was at the end of my rope. You know, and you just had a way of saying things, and you just kind of made things click. And I was like, wait a second, wait, people experience this, other people are feeling this way. And
Yeah.
it was just, yeah, it was wonderful. Like the advice you gave, the support you gave, and then just being able to learn. You know, I was able to learn so much knowledge. And my favorite, though, was creating that boundary. And
Yes.
I always talk about it because you were like, well, if you need to watch your show for 10 minutes, you know, if they're not bleeding or in danger, you can take your few minutes to watch a show or relax, whatever.
Exactly. Exactly. And we don't think about that. And all of what we do every day in and day out, all day long, it's never about us. It's always
No.
about our children. It's always about seeing about their needs and maintaining the home and the bills and dinner and
Yes.
meltdowns and bath and homework and all this stuff. And if you're constantly doing and moving and going, how do you constantly move and do and go if you don't take that couple of minutes to watch your favorite show or something? And even
Yeah.
if you don't have time to do that, we have to make time to do a little bit of something, because then we
Yes.
also have that other aspect. We're not only raising our children, we have that criticizing ear, comments in our ear. We have people trying to say what type of parent we are, and it's our fault for this and that. And
Yes.
we deal with a lot, so we definitely have to find ways, ever so small ways, to remember to take a time to take a breath.
Yes, absolutely. It really is nonstop, you know, and my kids, they hit the ground running as soon as they get up. You know, it's not like a slow, rise into it. It's like they're at 100 as soon as, 7
Yes, yes.
o'clock.
It's like sleep at all. Yeah,
And
I don't know if I mentioned before. It's like there was a time when my son, I would hold on to him. I'd be in the bed with him, holding on to his legs. I'm trying to sleep because he's still bouncing off the bed, and it's the middle of the night, and I'm praying he doesn't jump out of these pajama pants that I'm holding on to.
yes, and I told you how I didn't sleep for probably the first couple of few years of my oldest life, because part of her being on a spectrum, she was up till midnight looking at me, and I'm looking at her, and we just looking at each
Right, right, and probably had to get up at 6 a.m., right?
other.
Or 5
Yeah, and then
a.m.
yeah, and she's right back up, right, and full of energy, and I'm just like, how do you still have energy? How?
Right, right. Yeah, so
So
it's tough. So that's why we have to find that 5 minutes somewhere. And if 5 minutes is too much, we have to get that 30 seconds. We have to rejuvenate, renew our mind. It's important to do what we do.
it, it really is. And even like I say, even in the bathroom, sometimes we don't get our time in the bathroom, or a shower. I tell you, I used to take an hour, 2 hours to get dressed before becoming a mother. I took my time. I had everything was scrubbed, polished, makeup, everything. Now it's like 20 minutes. We don't have that time anymore.
Right, right.
but I
Yes.
make it count. Sometimes my shower is my little woo-saw meditation moment, and it helps. It helps to rejuvenate. So I really love that. So tell us, what does permeate stand for? What does that mean?
So, well, permeate, I can explain the concept to you, but I can't give out the acronym because you got to read the book. And the audience members have to read the book. But the concept of permeate, as we know, the definition of permeate, to saturate, to soak in, to be permeated. So, as an autism mom or caregiver, someone who's in the thick of it every day with all of what it entails to be us, so many things permeate us, and it just enters into our energy field, our spirit, our mind, our soul. So we have to find a way to shield up, to not allow the negative speak, whether it's self speak, whether it's coming from someone else, family members, co-parents, whatever, all of that negativity and extra stress and overwhelm that permeates into us, and it affects us mentally, medically, physically. It's draining, it's toxic. So this method is created to teach the steps to help us not allow those things to permeate us. So in essence, to shield up so those things don't enter in. And a lot of different modalities may talk about similar aspects, but what is unique about this permeate method, while you're shielding up from all of those things that I just mentioned, at the same time, you have to be able to allow the flow of the love and the compassion, because we can't shield up to it all, because we still need that. We still need that connection. We still need the love and compassion because that's who we are. So
Yes.
it's kind of a both and, to shield up from that negativity and that toxicity, but at the same time, not be a brick wall of who you are.
Yes, it's so true. I can totally relate to that. Having a daughter who was born on the spectrum, there was a lot of naysayers and people who were in denial about the diagnosis. And so they didn't even understand it. Like, well, why is she even in, behavioral therapy? Or she doesn't need to be, she talks. And it's like, well, not every child on the spectrum has a speech issue. Some of them do speak, but they have other challenges within that speech, or just they present differently. And so I had a lot of people who will tell me, family members and things, who be like, well, she doesn't look autistic. And it's like, well, what does autism look like?
Right. That part.
Yes. And so, it's just like what you said. It's not letting that negative talk or even that ignorance and those ignorant statements really get to you. Because if I was somebody that was very impressionable like that, I might have stopped going to her therapies or seeking the help that she needed. But I'm just so happy that I didn't listen, because she's doing so well. And she's doing so great. I've even had educators, school teachers, who told me she's too far behind. She'll never catch up. But guess what? This year, she won a certificate of academic excellence and student of the year. And
Awesome.
so, yes, I'm telling you, the tears that rolled down my face. And while I'm wiping the tears off my face, I'm posting it and sending the pictures to
Everybody, everybody who said what they were saying.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And it was 9 o'clock at night. I didn't care. I was waking everybody up. If they were asleep, I was posting on every platform. Look at my baby.
Right. Awesome. That's amazing. That is so excellent. That's what an
Yes.
excellent example. Yes. You can't let what other people are saying affect you, because then it's going to
Yes.
change your outlook. It's going to change how you advocate for your child. It's gonna change so many things, and it can even change what we say to ourselves. We start to
Yes.
believe what other people are saying if we're not careful.
Yes. It's so true. It's so true. Oh, this is such a great discussion so far, Ebony. I always love it when you're on the show. But we're going to go ahead and take our first break of the evening. So everybody stay tuned for more Pink Table Talk with Ebony Davis Martin.
In a world filled with fleeting moments, there's beauty waiting to be captured. My name is Christian, and I specialize in immortalizing your most precious memories. From elegant weddings to vibrant events and timeless portraits, I'm here to make every moment unforgettable. Let me tell your story through the lens. Contact me today and let's create magic together.
Welcome back, everybody, to Pink Table Talk. The show is produced by Lawin Media Network, and you can catch us live every Wednesday at 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern, either through our YouTube live channel, Twitch TV, Facebook Live, or you can catch the recording on all podcast platforms. Tonight, we are talking with the self-published author, Ebony Davis Martin, talking about her new book that navigates and helps those dealing with narcissistic and toxic family dynamics. We have, it looks like, do we have a comment here? Oh, yes. We from Mimi DeVera. She said, it's so nice seeing both of you again. I learned a lot from the previous episode with Ebony. And let's see, she has a comment here. They always say that when you become a parent, one consequence is losing yourself and prioritizing your children over yourself. But there is nothing wrong with prioritizing your children. Just make sure that you don't lose yourself because you're human too. Well said, Mimi, and I agree. It is a natural instinct for us to take care of our children and to always be worried about them. But I always remember, I know it's cliche, but you know, the airplane, what is it, with the mask?
The oxygen mask, yes.
Yes. And
Put
so,
your own mask on first before you help someone else.
Yes, absolutely. So, you know, it made so much sense to me because, you know, I thought about it. I was like, oh, well, what if I pass out? Then who's going to help them? Because they sure wouldn't know what to do. So it just reminds me to do that self-care. And it's not selfish to take care of yourself. So you can be refreshed and energized to take care of them.
Absolutely. And to add to that, I like to tell people that to remember that self-care is a mindset. It's not necessarily the things that you do, because sure, we love to get our nails done. We love to grab our lattes or, you know, all these other type of things. But what happens when you can't go to that nail appointment? What happens when you have it scheduled, you have the money, it's time to leave for that appointment, but it's a meltdown and now you can't go. So it's those things are important, but it's more about the mindset and remembering to prioritize yourself. So that way you aren't anyone who, you know, is in that position, it doesn't feel like I didn't make it to that appointment and now, you know, the negative self-speak enters. No, you can prioritize yourself in other ways. You can help your child through that situation, and then you can go take a moment to yourself. You can grab a cup of coffee from your kitchen. You can, you know, put on, light some incense or some aromatherapy. There's other things to do. It's about the mindset, not that specific task.
Yes, so true, so true. You know, for me, I do love my scented candles, and sometimes I'll just sit in my room in complete silence with just the candles going. And, you
Yeah.
know, I'll just, yeah, just have that silence. I just let my mind go quiet, you know. And yeah, after even 5 minutes, I'm recharged, you know, and I'm like, okay, now I can handle the next thing.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yes, yes. So, Ebony, tell us. I know you're not going to give us all of the secrets for the permeate method, but give us at least one or two steps that you find most powerful for people dealing with toxic or negative dynamics.
Okay, sure. So the P stands for posture. You have to position
Mm.
yourself. Anytime, and you notice I kind of just did it innately. You hear the word posture, and you kind of immediately posture yourself and sitting straight
Yeah.
up. And so the perspective, the mindset that goes with that, you're positioning yourself in a state of empowerment so that then you can you can square your shoulders, you can look at the situation and say, I am not this situation. I am not what that person is saying about me. All of that negative speak does not apply to me. You can
Yes.
have a
Yes.
better vantage point. And when you posture yourself, you can grab that shield and you can shield up so that you're blocking all of those darts of toxicity. So P is for posture. Position
Mm.
yourself to shield up.
I like it. I like it. That is so true. And it's so funny because when you said that, I started,
Exactly, exactly.
I said, she's right. I was like, okay, immediately I gotta myself.
Right, exactly.
But I love that, because it is, and it's not even so much a physical positioning, but I feel like when I hear that, it gives me a mental positioning too. It's like, okay,
Yes,
brace myself. Let's get ready for this. And so I like that. I think that's really great and empowering.
yes, yes. I also have in the book a little bit about there's a statement that I encourage everyone to say. Empowerment begins with me.
Ooh, I like that.
Empowerment begins with me.
Yes.
And so basically, if you think about it, you might think, well, wow, if it depends on me, I might not be able to do that. But I admonish you on the other side of that thought because we
Mhm.
can't change that situation. We can't change what that person is saying. We can change our perspective on it, how it sounds to it. We can shield up, we can stop it, we can block it, we can say, that's not me. I don't know who you're talking about because it's certainly not me. I am strong, I am resilient, I am smart. We can say those positive affirmations so that we can know who we are. And yes, empowerment begins with me. I can step into my power. No one's going to take it away from me because that's the one thing I can control. I can control how I look at things, how I process things, how I allow it to affect me or not. So empowerment begins with me.
Wow, I love that. That is so great. You always give us such great advice and great statements. These are the thoughts that I'll continue to think about. They become my little affirmations.
Yes, absolutely.
A good friend of mine told me a couple of years ago, this was during a time in my life where I was getting a lot of negativity thrown at me, especially about my motherhood, my parenting. And she said, well, you don't have to take it. And I said, what do you mean? She said, people can say what they want about you, and it doesn't mean that you have to accept it. And I said,
Yeah,
wow. Wow, that was so powerful for me in that moment. Because in that moment, I felt as if those words were like objects being thrown at me. And it's like we can take those words like an object and we can pick it up and carry it. And we can carry those words with us everywhere we go, whether they can say you're stupid, you're not good enough, you're not worthy. We can carry those. Or we can choose to say, hey, I'm not picking that up. That is not
right.
me. I'm not responsible for that. That's your thoughts. That's your words. And so, that really helped me a lot in that time. And even now, when, people criticize everybody, and so now I see we don't have to take.
Exactly, exactly. That's what I was talking about on the last episode, those external factors. I like how you mentioned how you gave us a visualization. I'm a visual learner. So that was excellent. Like, yes, those words coming at you, but you don't have to
Yes.
take them. You don't have to pick
Yes.
them up. You don't have to carry them. You can just let them fall to the ground because the
Yes.
power is within you. You can,
Yes.
we are so powerful and we don't realize it.
It's so true. It's so true. And so you talk a lot about the negative self-talk and how it distorts people's identity. What are some practical ways to shift that internal narrative?
That's a very good question. Of course, it's going to be different for every person. I'll say one thing. A lot of things are deep rooted. A lot of us have trauma, unprocessed issues. And so when we hear that negative talk, it immediately attaches to us and we replay it in our head and we hold on to that negative. And so my encouragement is always, always to seek counseling, seek therapy if there's something that's unprocessed.
Yes.
Because it's therapy is nothing, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad word. It's a part of healing and growth and progress. Another thing that people can do is just let it fall off. As hard, as difficult as it is, it's difficult and easy at the same time. Once you practice, once you work on it, it's an epiphany, it's an awakening. Like you said, in that moment, you realize, wait, I don't have to. We don't have to. We're adults. We're not in our childhood bunk bed anymore. So we can take control of our thoughts, what we allow to affect our minds, and what we think and feel about ourselves. We really have the power. And it takes that simple moment. You know what? That's not true. That's not me. So I'm not accepting that. I'm more than that. I'm worthy. You know, it's all internal,
Yeah.
and we have to believe and see what's accurate. And that's within us. We know that, but we have to connect to it because we get so detached because of our chaotic lives, because of trauma. So
Yeah.
the suggestion is if there's something deep rooted, seek therapy. Therapy is not a bad word. And then
Yes.
to awakening moments, walk into the truth. That's not true about me, so I'm not going to accept
Yes.
that.
Yes, so true. And on this show, we are huge believers in mental health. And we've had a few licensed practice counselors on the show. And I really encourage people to truly seek the therapy. There's so many avenues these days. I mean, you can text a therapist, you can go online, there's an app. A lot of jobs offer through their employee assistance program
Yeah,
free therapy sessions. Because I know some people are worried about the cost or the
mhm.
stigma, the job finding out. The job will not find out.
It's
Um, you know,
confidential. Yes.
yes, it's absolutely confidential. Even if it's 3 sessions, 5 sessions, use it. It can just truly give you so much relief and mental clarity. So I'm a huge, huge advocate for mental health.
Yes.
And so, Ebony, for people that tend to be bothered by these toxic or narcissistic individuals, they're usually empaths. So these negative words, they really affect them. How can an empath navigate these people and kind of detach from their toxicity?
Very good question. It's obviously easier said than done. I do find myself to be an empath. For me, there's certain movies I can't even watch because it'll affect me depending on the content. But there's different things I do within myself, whether it's a physical position that I put myself, whether it's something that I say within myself. It's a lot of internal work, but
Yes.
it doesn't have to be done overnight. It's not going to poof. A little bit at a time, and know that there's nothing wrong with you, to have to process through this. The other person who's doing all of that toxic behavior and toxic words that they're spewing, they're the ones that have some deeper things going on because that's the behavior they're just demonstrating. So it's not you, it's not me, it's not us. That's where we have to start at realizing it's not us. It's not
Yeah.
our fault,
Yes.
and then we can move from there. But it's important to have that awareness, that understanding, that revelation from the start. It's not us.
Yes. And that's a huge burden, relief in itself. And when I truly saw that these toxic individuals or narcissistic individuals in my life were truly, they were truly damaged people. They're hurt people. They have trauma they're not facing. I felt
Mhm.
sorry for them. And that's when I learned true forgiveness and how to let go. And that's when I found my healing was when I began to feel sorry for them, instead of being angry or feeling hatred towards them, or blaming them. I said, no, I feel bad. I feel bad for them because I wouldn't want to live my life treating people that way. I
Right,
like to treat people good. Yeah,
right.
so that was a turning point for myself. And that's part of that self-compassion.
Yes, yes. That I talk about that in the book too, because we have so much compassion for other people, but we don't return that same level of compassion toward ourselves. And it is
Yes,
so important to have that compassion for ourselves, because we are important, we're worthy, we're worth it, we are so special, so important. You know, it's a lot. It's a lot. But think about all that you do in a given day. You get it done. How amazing
yes,
we are that we do all of that. Everything that we do every day. So we're
yes.
rock stars. We're
We
doing it.
are.
You know?
Yes.
So yeah, it starts with recognizing that we got it going on. We're amazing.
Yeah, breast of
Right, 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 right.
Oh, this is so wonderful. I'm really enjoying this discussion. This is an excellent, excellent book. But everybody stay tuned. We're going to go on our second commercial break of the evening.
Join us for a captivating new series where Lon sits down with the trailblazers of the music and entertainment world. Discover the stories behind the faces and voices that shape our culture and community.
We will bring you exclusive interviews with industry legends and rising stars. Behind the scenes insights and get a peek into the creative processes and personal journeys. Artists and performers and their upcoming shows and events.
Stay tuned for more updates and sneak peeks. Follow us on social media and subscribe to our channel.
Welcome back, everybody, to Pink Table Talk. We're talking with the lovely and extraordinaire Ebony Davis Martin, who's telling us about her new wonderful book on how to navigate and deal with toxic and narcissistic individuals. So now part of your book deals with co-parenting. So tell us, what are some early signs for those people out there who may or may not be aware that they are co-parenting or engaging with narcissistic or overbearing people?
Yes, good question. So, again, I'm not, I can't diagnose anybody, but those characteristics, those signs that, when people are always pointing the finger at you, when they're criticizing, saying that you're not a good parent and it's your fault and you don't know what you're doing and what's wrong with you, and just all of those kind of phrases that's really putting a person down and belittling them and saying, you can't decide anything right. Everything you decide it just messes up or whatever. Take a moment to think about it. You may decide something for your child or a service provider or something, and it might not work out the first time around. or that might not be a good fit with that provider. It doesn't mean you're a bad parent because it wasn't a good fit with the provider. It doesn't mean that you don't know what you're doing just because that thing didn't work out. You just learned that, okay, that didn't work out. Let's try something else, you
Yes,
know?
yes.
So
So true.
anytime someone's just pointing the blame and just having those negative things to say and just criticizing, like, especially when you're the one doing all the hard work and you're at the meeting, you're
Yeah.
advocating, you're taking them to school and picking them up and doing the homework and the cooking and the bills, and you're in it all the way in, and they're barely doing anything. That's a red flag. And they want to
Mm.
criticize even though they're not the ones there to make the decision, good, bad, or indifferent. They're not there to make that decision, but they want to criticize your decision. So those are some of the red flags that we need to look at and be mindful of because it's not healthy. And sometimes we can't get out of those situations, so we have to learn, how to set boundaries. We have to learn how to stop that from affecting us because we still have to make those decisions. We still have to wake up and get the kids to school and all the things that we do. We still have to keep on going on. So just be
Yes.
mindful when someone is criticizing and not helping.
Yes, yes. And that's the part that really just kind of upset me at those moments because I know what it's like. I know all the work that I do, from my daughter from birth, she was a NICU baby, and people don't understand. It's hard work, so from the beginning, I was doing all the hard labor, and like you said, getting them up ready for school, picking them up, making the dinner, keeping things clean, getting them dressed, handling the boo-boos and the tantrums and
Right,
and
right.
just everything. And like you said, with the schools and making sure they get, 504, IEP, all the emails and phone calls and, all those things, the meetings with the teachers and the specialists, it's just nonstop and it's just overwhelming. And to have somebody who's just sitting back, they're not actively involved, but yet they're going to criticize you. Oh man, that really cuts deep. That cuts deep. And it takes a lot of patience, forgiveness, and journaling and help
Yes, yes,
to
it
kind of
does.
get you through, And boy, I give it to all those parents out there that are dealing with this because it truly, truly is hard.
Yes, it is. And another difficult aspect to it is for the ones who are overbearing in a roundabout way. It's a little bit easier when it's obvious that they're just criticizing, criticizing, criticizing. But what it sounds like and it's guised as caring, it's tricky. So you kind of have to be mindful when it's like, well, um, you should try this because maybe you don't it comes in those undercuts. So
Yeah.
you have to be mindful of the tone that people are using, the words that people are using, and I like to say the baseline to find out that difference is it uplifting for you or your children? Because
Yes.
you can have a person, it can be your parent, it can be your sibling, it could be someone who's close to you who loves you and you love them, and they may or may not be aware that they're doing it, but just those little snide comments, if it has you feeling like you're doubting yourself, you have to be mindful of that. You have to say, well, mom, I love you. Great talking to you. I'm going to talk to you later. And, you
Mhm.
have to set those boundaries. You don't have to be harsh and cruel. You can still have the person in your life if that's, something that you can do, but set those boundaries. Oh, good talking with you, mom. I got to go handle this right quick. We'll talk another time. Hey, sis, I gotta go, I gotta go get the food together and hey, we'll catch up later. You have to
Yes.
put those boundaries because it doesn't
Yes.
always come in an obvious way. And it could, and most of
Yes.
the time, it is someone who loves you and you love them.
Yes. It's so true. And for me, I also experienced that with a pediatrician, actually. The pediatrician would use such a condescending tone when, especially when I was initially trying to get my daughter diagnosed. She's like,
Hmm.
oh, well, you just got to keep her active. That's why she has so much energy. And, you just got to limit the sugar. And I'm like, well, first of all, I'm not giving her a lot of sugar. And second of all, I've seen her around other children her age and they take naps and they rest and they show different things. But she's exhibiting differently. And so for me, it was hard hearing that also those like you said, those tones, and I heard it from professionals, and so that when she finally did get the diagnosis, they was like, oh, well, she'll grow out of it. In 2 years, she'll be fine. It's like they still wouldn't, accept it. So it's just one of those things where you have to kind of, like I said, let it roll off.
And I mean, and that's a level of boundary too, because that's what I mentioned earlier. Sometimes it's just not a good fit. And it's nothing necessarily against that particular professional. It didn't mesh for whatever reason. And you just might need to have a different pediatrician or a different therapist. Or I
Yes.
had my son was oh my gosh, I don't remember how old he was, maybe 10 or 12. And he had a therapist, an OT that would come to the house. And she's like, oh, do you see the kitty cat? And look at the doggy. And I had to interrupt. And I said, I'm sorry. He is not 3 years old. So it's not always a good fit, and that's okay. Doesn't mean you have to accept that. We have the power, the ability, the authority to say, you know, it's not working out. I'm gonna try a different avenue. And that's okay.
Yes, yes, it's so true. You're right. You're absolutely right. I feel that as parents, we do have to advocate for on our children's behalf, for providers who will treat them fairly and not have these ignorant statements or just not knowledgeable. I feel like you said, 25 years ago, we didn't have all these diagnoses, but we do now. And so if these providers aren't keeping up to date on the latest information, then
True.
I don't want to go to them. Yeah, I wouldn't want that for my child.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's important because we do know our children. They're
Yes.
our children. We're there in it, in the thick of it. The doctors, they see them what once, however often. So
Right.
we're the ones there every day. So it matters, our input, our presence, having a conversation, advocating. We're important. So if anytime someone feels that they're not being heard, even if it's a professional, it's okay to say, just find a different provider. It's
Yes.
okay.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, Ebony, in your book, you speak directly to people who feel stuck in these dynamics. So, what does healthy boundary setting look like for these people walking on emotional eggshells?
A healthy boundary is, again, all of these things are going to look different for each person. Um,
Mhm.
First, you have to kind of realize what you need. It starts with recognizing what's going to work for you, what's good for you, what's not good for you. And once you know that and you stand in confidence and that empowerment, you have to start setting limits, boundaries. You have to maintain focus on yourself, your children, and whatever is within your household. You know, It's funny because I was having a conversation with my wife recently, and I said, people don't realize, excuse me, people don't realize, like, for example, let's say you're doing a medical questionnaire and it says, oh, tell me about your family. We're so inclined to talk about our childhood and our parents. Remember a little while ago, I said, we're adults, we're grown. Your family is who lives in your home with you. Your family is your circle who you choose. And technically, your parents are now technically your relatives. Your family, your core, it's who you choose to have there, and that's the priority, and that's what you stick with. And if something is not good or well for you and your family, your core, that circle of your choosing, who you choose to live in your household, you got to make some changes. And that may look different, and you may not, because we're so compassionate, we don't want to hurt people's feelings. So we don't want to tell people no, but sometimes you got to tell people no. No,
Yes.
we don't want to hurt other people's feelings, but we'll accept the hurt ourselves. We
Yeah.
have to change that dynamic.
Yes, it's so true. And it can be so hard, especially culturally. I know for a lot of people in Asian cultures, it's very hard because, they respect the elders, and they respect the in-laws. And they could be the ones who are the most critical or overbearing. So it could be hard for them to set those boundaries, speaking from a cultural aspect.
Right, right. That yes, so you still do have to have some sensitivity, and you don't want to damage, relationships and cause any additional harm, but you don't want to be on the receiving end of that either. So yeah,
Yes.
you're gonna have to take some ginger steps in some areas, but take
Yes.
those steps, ease into it. If you go to your parents' house, let's say, and the children are having a visit or it's a family gathering, who says you have to stay 5 hours? You decide how long you're going to stay. You still went, you're still respectful. You may have a certain routine or a ritual, or like I know in my family, some of my siblings are a little more specific than others. So I have a sibling who says, we're not sitting down to eat until grandma sits down to eat. And that's fine. That's good. But then after that, let's say, for example, then there's toxic comments, there's things going on, and it's overwhelming, it's stressing, or your child is having a meltdown. Well, you know what? Grandma ate, grandma sat down, we're eating, let's wrap this up. You don't
Yeah.
have to stay 5 hours, you don't have to stay 10 hours. So just find the small ways to just flex a little bit. And we're already master magicians, and all these different things we have to do. So just throw some smoke on it and just kind of slide out. Slide out the back door.
They're always such a great excuse, I mean, once they start, I call it when they get activated, when they start, they've had enough. I'm like, oh, time to go.
Yeah, yeah,
Because it's like the point of no return,
right,
yeah.
right. Yeah, you just gotta find what works for you, and just to be mindful of it, and just to
Yeah,
not be okay with accepting it. It may take
yeah,
some time, but it's workable, it's doable. That's what I wrote the book about. There's a lot of resources out there. There's other support groups out there. I have coaching services. I mean, it's not going to look the same for every person, but the point of the matter is, don't just stand by and take those things. Work on it slowly, bit by bit, step by step. You'll get to that place you need to be.
awesome, awesome, so amazing. Thank you for that. So we're gonna go ahead and take our last commercial break of the evening. I can't believe we're almost at the end of the show already. This
I
has been so
know.
amazing.
It goes by fast every time.
It really does. But everybody stay tuned for our final thoughts with Ebony Davis Martin. Welcome back everybody to Pink Table Talk. Tonight we've been discussing Ebony Davis Martin's latest book, The Permeate Method, Part 1. We've been discussing how to navigate and handle toxic and narcissistic dynamics, how to get rid of negative self-talk, and how to create healthy boundaries. So, Ebony, what is one thing that our audience can learn and get from this book? And tell them, where can they find this book?
Yes, absolutely. So the book is on Amazon. And if you can't remember the title because it is a mouthful, we are talking before the show. It's a mouthful because it represents a lifeful. But the book is available on Amazon. You can look under my name, Ebony Davis Martin. You can go to my website, which you so graciously have on the screen, soulflow.org. And if you click that picture of the book, it'll take you right to Amazon. From the book, I would say it helps you also to look at yourself, your past self, your present self, your future self, and it takes you through a journey of looking through a different perspective of what you may have thought of yourself and growing up and your present life and what you expect and hope for your future. Because many times, because we have such complex, challenging lives, we don't even have an idea of our future self or our future life. And we can't lose sight of that. Just like the commenter earlier, we can't lose sight of who we are. We
Yeah.
do so much as the parents that we do, but it's important in order to keep on doing what we're due to be renewed, to not lose
Yes.
who we are. And so if you think about your past self, who you can't change, but you can process those things so you don't have any negative or trauma traipsing along with you, your present self, how we're managing our daily lives, we can't change the situations and the circumstances necessarily, but we can change how we allow it to affect us because we have power. We have to step into it and connect to it, which is another one of the steps talking about connecting to our power. That's in the book. That's another permeate step. How do we connect to power? How do we recognize it and connect to it so that we can start thinking about our future self and our future lives? And so that we don't lose ourselves in caregiving and being that autism mom, because we're so important, we're so worthy, and we need to be renewed every opportunity we can so that we can do what we're doing, because we're doing amazing things and we're amazing people.
Yes, absolutely. I can't say it enough. I really, truly, I'm a little biased. I do have a little bit of favoritism towards the autism moms out there. It is hard, and there's no easier way to put it. There are days where you just are at the end of your rope, like I said. And so that's why I truly love what you're doing. I love the support groups and the coaching sessions you run, because that's a way for those moms to give that self-care also and to take care of themselves and prioritize themselves is by reaching out, and getting that support. Even just listening to other moms' stories, and they'll be like, oh, he ran off the house again today. And I'm like, yeah, mine too.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like, okay, it's not just me, and it kind of helps, to keep us from feeling that isolated. It can be very isolating, that feeling, especially if you're surrounded, like you said, by those critical people, by those toxic people that are not supportive. So,
Right, right.
yes. So, Ebony, this book does say part 1. So, can we expect more? What's next in this journey?
Yes, absolutely. So there will be a part two. The part two is almost finished. The part two will be, excuse me, the part two will be a workbook. So I'm
Nice.
excited about that. So you can actually have a little interaction with the reading, and it'll help to kind of take that beginning steps into that deep dive into your inner self so that you can not lose yourself. So this book, this series, part 1 and part 2, it's about renewing your mind and fortifying your mind, because we know that without a strong mind, we can't do any of the things that we're doing. So we have to renew and fortify our mind.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. What a great way to end it. I thank you so much, Ebony, again for coming on the show. You're always such a wonderful presence, and you always give us such great advice and such great knowledge. So I thank you so much for coming. And I thank you all for watching the show tonight. Be sure to watch us every Wednesdays at 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern on Lawwood Media Network, either through our YouTube, Facebook, Twitch TV, or on all podcast platforms. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye-bye. Thank you.